This is Basalon Cycling, the podcast that brings you on thrilling adventures in the world of cycling, ultra cycling, and bikepacking. I'm your host Sherry. Today's episode is brought to you by Basalon Coffee. Check out the coffee in the link in the description and bio. Today is all about bikes. Is there a bike to rule them all? What's the optimal geometry? Can you have one bike instead of three? To help me answer all these questions is joining me today Jeff Webb, founder of Fara Bicycles. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm really curious. I think a lot of the audience wonder, which bike to choose. And there is this talk now about endurance versus all-road bikes. And I think that's something that Fara really focus on, adventure bikes. So can you tell us a bit more? How did you start it, Fara? Where is the idea coming from?
Sure. Yeah. So, originally, a bunch of cyclists, basically. And I think the people involved are kind of embrace all the different types of cycling. So I wouldn't say we're specifically one type of cyclist or another. But when we got to, so the history, or also there's a move involved. Like we moved from one place in Norway to Oslo, and when we arrived in Oslo, I saw like there's a type of riding that goes on there, and it has a bit to do with the geography around the city. Like we have this big forest that's in close to the city, and what we saw was that people were combining riding in the forest on these really nice gravel roads and together with road riding, basically. So I mean, they weren't really like going for a gravel ride per se. They were just going for a ride, and that ride would involve both like road riding and these forest roads. And you have in Norway like a lot of roads will be asphalt for a while, and then they'll just turn to gravel and keep going. And so either you have to turn around and go home, or if you have the right equipment, you can keep going. So I think that was really like the inspiration for us for what we called the Oslo project back in 2000. We wanted to create a bike that was like perfectly sort of designed for this type of combination, I think, of different types of surfaces.
Exactly. So, would you say that's kind of the DNA of Fara? This kind of the Oslo project to have this versatility, to have an adventure no matter where you go, and not be limited by what your bike can do.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. Like as I said, we were a bunch of people that embrace all different types of cycling and not necessarily sort of pigeonholed into one category or another. And so we like our bikes to be versatile, so that they can, they work for different types of riding and different types of situations. And that, also means that you don't have to have 3 or 4 bikes in your closet. Like you can get away with one bike that will serve you for many different purposes.
Exactly. I think there's been quite some discussion about I mean, you were a professional cyclist yourself in the 80s. So I wonder, you see all the pros, they have different bikes like road, time trial, gravel. But most people, I think, are thinking, okay, maybe is there a bike to do it all? What's your thoughts on this? I guess it goes also, I noticed with endurance or all road, people might think about, okay, maybe I can have one bike and then switch tires, or what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think there's first of all, like back, if you look back 5 or 10 years, like everybody just watched the Tour de France and they thought like, well, that's the bike I need.
Hmm.
Now, people are starting to realize more and more that that's actually not the case, and it seems to be more of a separation between what the pros are doing and what the normal people are doing. And we really design our bikes for normal people. Like, we're not involved in high level racing. We don't really, have any kind of aims towards that. So, um, our bikes are designed for regular, ordinary people who, have to fix the bike themselves, want to pay to get it fixed, which is even worse. So you want things that work, are very simple and very pragmatic. Uh,
Exactly.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed, for example, yeah, what you mentioned, like a bike created for people. But what was your thoughts when you behind the bikes, like the old road, when you design it, the geometry? Can you explain a bit more? Like I'm really confused sometimes
Mhm.
between what is the difference of an endurance bike, an all road, a gravel in terms of geometry, maybe
Yeah,
stiffness wise. The Faras like kind of comfortable and designed like uh, to be used for long periods of time, or can you explain a bit the concept how you came up with these designs?
sure. So basically, yeah, I mean, a road bike that's meant for performance, high performance, there's no real concession or compromise when it comes to comfort, right? Like the pros are highly trained, they're very flexible, and they race for relatively short periods of time. If it's maybe 5, 6 hours at the most, and so they can handle like a high degree of discomfort. But for the rest of us, and then even myself included, is it's like comfort is actually something that will uh, very directly result in you having a good day on the bike. Like kind of that's what we're all looking for, right? It's like we just want to go out and have a nice ride and have a good time, and yeah, we want to go fast and we want to have fun. But we certainly don't want to, compromise like on the comfort factor because it's just going to make things not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So when we designed the FAR, the all road, that comfort was like one of the biggest factors we took into consideration. We did this by there's two ways to achieve it. First of all, there's three ways actually. One of them is the tire clearance. So when you have bigger tires, lower tire pressure, allow you to basically have more comfort. That's pretty easy. Second one is the structural design of the frame. So we use a curved seat stay. We drop the seat stays on the rear, so that gives more leverage for the seat tube, and that will allow the seat tube to flex more. Uh, so there's sort of some structural things that are put into play there. And then the last one is the carbon fiber, the weave, the carbon fiber layups that are used by the factory. So it's engineered. There's sort of a deflection that's engineered into the carbon fiber. So those three factors together will basically determine the comfort level of your frame. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to say one more thing because what there's kind of like a stigma around this, the endurance category, right? It's almost like the E word, like and a lot of people relate that to kind of boring bikes and you're sitting up like right, like a granny and all this stuff. And of course, nobody wants that. You want to look good on the bike, and it should. Most of all, it should be responsive and it should be fun to ride. And that was like, I think that's kind of where we really hit the home run in the all road. Is like it has the comfort, it will go long distances, but it's also really really fun. It's actually it's the bike I ride every day. Like it's my favorite bike of our collection, so we want to make sure that we kept the fun factor in the bike for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually something I noticed when I try all road for the first time. It was like actually fun to ride, and it was
Mm,
very easy to set up. Normally you have to really tweak a lot of things to make it work for you, but it's like I just got it. I sat on it, and it was like kind of ready to ride, and it was fun
mm,
and comfortable to ride. I think the geometry also is quite forgiving. So sometimes like yeah, if a bike is like a road racing bike is less forgiving. So if you really have to adjust everything to make it work for you. But we recently went on a trip in Taiwan, and a lot of people use the Fara all road rental, and most of them they didn't have to adjust much, and they said, "Wow, I could ride on this bike for like 7 days." So I think yeah, I think that's something like that really impressed me. Would you say you took some learnings? I know you are a ultra cyclist from your
mm,
ultra cycling career, and put it into the design of the bikes. I mean, one of the things I noticed when I found out about Fara was like, wow, the integrated bikepacking bags is something that I
mm.
really was looking for. And the fact that you can take the bags easily in and out is really useful for ultra races. Would you say that is inspired by your races,
Mhm.
by your
Yeah,
experience?
actually, well, yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, before when we were designing or developing the bike, I was actually doing more bike packing than racing. So I think there's been some frozen fingers, and when you get there where you're going, it's dark and all this stuff. So this kind of like simplicity and things should be really easy to use, and nobody likes straps around their frame. So um, basically, when we I was bikepacking and did a couple of races when we were during the development, and the bike was for sure meant for that purpose. Like it was, we built this bike for bikepacking and ultra racing, and the it was basically the first time that I know of that where a bike company was like where we developed the bags and the bike at the same time and developed
Hmm.
them to be a system. And so the bags fit perfectly into the frame, and there's, as you're saying, like there's a snap-in system that allows you to remove and put the bike or the bags in super simply. So and all this was like we did all this at the same time. So I think that was like a pretty exciting opportunity to really have like a well thought through design. And then we have some ideas like where can we places where we want to take it to next. So it's yeah, we'll see where we go with that.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And any exciting projects for this year? What we
Yeah,
can expect from Fara?
yeah. Some things I can't talk about, of course, but the biggest one that right now that I think is that a lot of people have seen and you've been riding yourself is the cockpit. Like that's we designed an integrated cockpit that has some features that are very unique compared to everything else on the market. So once again, it's like a little bit like the FAR, like the all road, like we it's a little bit outside of what a lot of people are doing, and I think people it's going to be raise some eyebrows for sure, and then when people understand like what the features are and the functionality, like I think people are really going to love it, and it's really nice to ride. So lots of great feedback. So we're looking forward to getting that live. It's actually not very far away. It's a few weeks away now to going live, and then yeah, from there we've got some more things cooking, but I can't talk too much about everything.
Oh, some interesting insight. So, stay tuned for the new developments. Huh?
That's
Actually,
right.
some of you, of my viewers, might have spotted the cockpit. I got a lot of questions about it. So, yeah, keep an eye to see what's next. And I'm wondering, so you do ultra races yourself, and you've seen a bit how the scene has changed. There's more and more people getting into bikepacking, ultra endurance cycling, adventure cycling. And what's the events you are more looking forward to, or that you think yeah, you would like to do, like in the coming years or this year? Any exciting plans
Sure.
for the season?
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to say, like, as I mentioned before, like we embrace, and I personally embrace all kinds of cycling, and that's one of the things I love about the bikepacking community is you have like, it's such a diverse group of people, to even if you go to a race, like it's, the guy who comes first and the person who comes in last just have like completely different experiences. But we're all on two wheels and we're all having fun, and I think it's important that we don't get too hung up in the competition of all this because that the spirit of bikepacking is really just about exploring the world on your bike and going to new places and experiencing new things, having adventures. So that's really important that we preserve that. And at
Hmm.
the same time, yeah, the racing side of it is really exciting. And I've sort of gotten more and more going down the rabbit hole, I think, the last few years. And uh, it's become, I enjoy the fact that it's a challenge on several different levels. You have obviously your physical ability. You have to manage your body and fueling and all this stuff. Uh, you have all your equipment. Like if something on your equipment fails, there's a good chance that you're not going to achieve your objectives. If it's a light or a battery or something or other, and you're not prepared, then you're done basically. And then there's the mental part of it too, which I find really interesting. And I've been sort of diving deeper into just sort of
Yeah.
what at least I'm capable of, and what you can do, and a little sleep you can function on, and things that I 2 years ago or 3 years ago I thought was never possible. I've never done. And I think that's pretty cool. Like it's a fun. As you get older through life, you have to challenge yourself in different ways, and I can't go fast anymore, so I just have to keep going slow and keep going. Basically, that's about all I can do. So
Yeah.
no, it's good. And I have to say that after doing Badlands now twice and Italy divided done three times, and enjoy the some more of the off-road stuff. So like more gravel style and even some trail riding. So I've got my sights set on riding the Tour Divide this year, which is
Oh, wow.
kind of the granddaddy in over in North America. Um, and our yeah, our current gravel bike might be a little bit under spec for that, so we'll see what I pull out of the bag to ride over there. And then Badlands is that's my favorite event, so I'm looking forward to going back there. And I was maybe a little bit spoiled this year because the first day at Badlands was cold by Spanish standards, which means it was like 20 degrees, which was perfect temperature for a lot of us Northerners. So maybe if I go back and it's 40 degrees again, we'll see how much fun I think that is.
Wow, yeah, sounds interesting. Well, I'm preparing for Badlands. Will be the first time doing the race,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm curious to hear. Have you thought about your setup? Can you run us a bit through the setup you use or that you're planning to use this year?
Sure. So, well, the bike, obviously, it's a gravel bike. It's a gravel race for a gravel bike, so I think it's pretty fitting. Last year, I rode the RockShox. I can't remember the name. Is it Judy? I can't
The
remember the name.
suspension fork. Yeah.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't remember. I rode the RockShox for it. I like that a lot. Actually, released a lot of the pressure on my hands. I do struggle with getting numb fingers and stuff. So the shock really helped a lot. It's like a kilo of extra weight on your bike, so that's a big sacrifice there. But obviously, I'm not the lightest person anyway, so I don't know if a kilo less or more makes a difference. But so that was pretty much standard gravel bike with the shock, and then um, the, the equipment that you're going to carry is always like it's 100% dependent on the weather. If you know it's
Yeah.
going to be warm, also warm in the nights, you don't really need to carry that much. Like I think probably 90% of what I was carrying last year was just food, and then I had a very minimal setup of like jackets and stuff. So the year before I did the same race, and I had a bivy with me with a super light bivy setup. But this year I didn't even bother bringing it. I was just like, figured I'll sleep outside if I need to. So, but then do Italy Divide. It's in May. It's in around April in Italy, and temperatures can be anywhere from 5 degrees to 15 kind of thing. So then it's like a completely different setup when it comes to clothing, and then then you have to have the saddle pack with clothing and stuff. I'm a
Hmm.
little bit soft in my old age, so I do get cold and feel like I need to carry some clothes with me, so
Yeah.
to keep
And for
myself
Badlands, you
functioning.
using the Fara gravel, but could you use the Fara all road? I mean, it has a clearance for 35, 38 millimeter tires. I've seen a lot of people are actually using endurance or all road bikes for gravel races. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, knowing the course, the Badlands course, I would say no way. Like if, I mean, everything's possible. You could ride on a road bike, probably you'd be walking a lot. But I mean, it's like
Yeah.
if you have a choice, I would say that the just the head angle, so the steering angle is steeper. The
Hmm.
extra tire clearance is not gonna, the comfort and just the stability and the downhills and stuff. There's a lot of long, fast gravel downhills, and some of them are chunky and rutted out and stuff. So I don't think that's a place for for an all road still like with under 40 millimeter. In fact, I would be going the other way with tires. The, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, Rob Britton this year we're all one factor, so that was that's got a maximum time, so 45 or something. But the year
Hmm.
before the guy was already on that. So
No. Yeah.
I think there yeah. So uh, I think it's one of the rougher courses with chunkier conditions that you need to have a bigger bike for.
Would you say the biggest difference between, let's say, an all-road bike and a gravel bike is the tire clearance, or it goes more in terms of the geometry? Why somebody would buy, let's say, have two bikes, like also a gravel bike, or can somebody get away just with having an all-road bike and switching around the tires?
Hmm.
That's something that a lot of people ask me.
Yeah, so I think if you kind of work backwards from the terrain that you ride, if you're, what does your normal thing look like, or the ride that you want to do? Is it chunky gravel, trails possibly, and roads that are washed out and all that kind of stuff? Then you
Hmm.
really need to have like a 45 millimeter plus tire. Anything
Hmm.
below that, then it's going to be, the bike's going to be squirrely, and it's not, you have to have a lot of tire pressure to not destroy your tires. And it's not going to be fun. Let's put it that way. So,
Hmm.
and then when you start with like a certain tire dimension, that puts a lot of the requirements on the frame geometry automatically, because there's only so close together you can put your tires, right? You have to have
Hmm.
your crank and everything else in between your two tires. You also don't want to have toe overlap, right? So when your front toe hits the tire, nobody likes to have that. So um, as soon as you determine your tire dimensions, then the rest of the geometry kind of falls into place after that. So that's where, like for us, the difference, we have three bikes in our lineup. We have a road, an all road, and a gravel. And those three bikes are really, it's like the tire dimensions that are ideal for that bike, that determine how the bike is designed. So, you know, to put that into sort of practical terms, if you have gravel tires or even mountain bike tires, they have to be further apart. The wheels have to be further apart. So you have a longer wheelbase. Longer wheelbase means more stability. That's great, but it also slows the bikes down, so it makes it less fun.
Hmm.
It's fine if you're on gravel because you want more, you're more interested in stability than responsiveness. But if people talk about the one bike, well, if you put a road, wheels and tires on a gravel bike, yeah, it'll work for sure, but it's going to feel really sluggish and compared to
Yeah.
a road bike on tarmac, right? So that's where the sort of the all road setup that we have kind of fits right in the middle, and you can run a 38 millimeter tire, which will work for smooth gravel really well.
Hmm.
Um, and then you can run a 28 millimeter tire on the road. It feels just like a road bike on that setup. So that's actually kind of my trick. In Oslo, we have a lot of really nice gravel. We call it like, it's like,
Champagne gravel.
champagne. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've been there, right? So you've got to ride
Yeah.
it. Like our gravel is just like, it's like Autobahn gravel. So um, I ride, my summer setup is like, I just have two wheel sets, and I have a gravel wheel set with a set of 38s, and just if we're going to go up in the forest, I just put those wheels on and go. And if we're going to go road riding, I put the wheels on.
Hmm.
Everything, I just switch them back and forth, and it takes 5 minutes. So that's pretty ideal setup. And of course, if yeah, that's kind of what it's in. So really, like, start, if you're looking at your ideal bike setup, it's like start with where you ride and what type of riding you do, and if you're chunky gravel over here and super smooth tarmac over there, and if those are the two things that you ride, well, it's going to be hard for you to find something that's ideal for both of those. But if the champagne gravel stuff is actually pretty close to
Yeah.
tarmac, so
Yeah.
it's not a yeah, makes it
Yeah,
easier
I
to
think that's
pick it.
a good compromise. Actually, yeah. When I rode in Oslo, it was like a perfect, like a smooth gravel. It was like nearly like tarmac. So I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I think the old road. That's why it's called the Oslo project. So yeah, it's really
yeah,
ideal for this kind of terrain. And I even rode the old road with 35 millimeter tires in the UCI Gravel World Series, like
yeah, yeah,
the qualifiers in Badlands, and I managed to finish.
yeah,
So actually, and I had there were some sections of tarmac, so I managed like to catch up, take some time on the other riders in the tarmac
mm,
section because it was much faster than I lost a bit of time of the more technical terrain, so it was like kind of you win time on one side and
yeah,
maybe it can be more tricky on the other. But yeah, I think what you mentioned depends of the kind of terrain. On some races like Badlands, yeah, definitely. I think you need at least 45 millimeter
yeah,
tires. So that's what I
yeah.
saw
We
mostly in the setups.
sorry, we have like we have a rider who rides pretty high level races at high level for us, and he went to the UCI World Championships and he rode an all road bike and put 35 millimeter tires on it. So it's a capable bike for that type, those types of sort of non-technical gravel riding.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get over into chunky technical stuff, it's a different ball.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's because it's also more agile? I don't know. The all road, as you said, is agile and fast on tarmac. It
Yeah.
feels like it, but also like compliant on gravel. What I noticed, for example, before I had that Cervelo Sparrow and I used to switch, road tires and
Mm.
gravel tires, and it felt like I was like, I don't know, riding a truck on the corners. It felt like, oh, this is like, as you said, it works, but it feels slow. So I think
Yeah.
that's where like this kind of all road bikes fits very well in this regard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
would you
Exactly.
say is the same all road than endurance? Because there's a bit of confusion between these both terms. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't because our world is the whole road world, so I don't know exactly what endurance is or what it means, but I assume it's just a bike with more comfort and generally it's related to the riding position as well. That it has a more
Mm-hmm.
upwards higher handlebar cockpit position. So um, at the end of the day, all that matters is what you the user and what you're going to use the bike for, and does it work for you? It doesn't really matter what it's called or what category it's in.
Mm-hmm.
And um, you know we we have a set of problems that we're trying to solve, and we solved it in the way that I explained as far as geometry and the structural design of the bike and the carbon fibers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was just our approach and our solution. So, but I think if you took two bikes side by side, and one's called endurance and the other one's called all road, it's tire clearance, it's the geometry, the head angle, the wheelbase, sorry. Uh,
Yeah.
and then possibly other, you might take into consideration things like the drivetrain, so the gearing that the bike would have. But
Yeah.
if those two are the same on both bikes, well, they're kind of the same bike, right? And then
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter what the companies call it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And for example, do you think I notice, yeah, for most riders, I think, yeah, more relaxed geometry tends to be better unless you're doing like something like
Mm,
crit races or like, really high speed short races, as you mentioned. If you're looking to do like go on adventure cycling, bikepacking, touring, or maybe a ultra race, yeah, might be better to start with a bike with a more relaxed geometry, because
mm,
I felt like a lot of issues I had in my first ultra race. I was using a super stiff aero road bike and then I
mm.
got a Sherman's neck, numbness in my
Oh God.
hands. And after switching, yeah, to the all road bike, I don't have any of these issues anymore.
Mm,
I of course did a bike fit, but still, like I went on a bike fit, and they were like, "Oh, that road bike is like we cannot make it work for you, really," because
mm,
I had to put a tower of spacers to get the
mm.
position a bit more upright, and then it was super stiff. I felt every vibration from the road. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I was saying before. Like comfort equals fun, right? And
Hmm.
uh, unless you're a professional, you're making a living out of racing your bike. We're all here. Like we just want to go out and have a nice, good day on the bike, right? That's all you want. You want to come home and say like, "Wow, that was a fun ride." And I think when you take, we're the industry or the market, let's say, are starting to realize that, yeah, when you take some of these features that have been designed into the all road category, it kind of makes a lot of sense for almost everybody. Like,
Hmm.
that's my theory is like if, unless you have a number on your back, like there's no need to be riding a race bike.
Yeah.
And you're going to have more fun on, a more, like you call it, relaxed, like a more bike that's a little bit tuned down from these World Tour Pro bikes, because it's not really, it's like if you went and got a formed one car and went down to get groceries and went to the cafe, and like, yeah, you're gonna get down there, and you're gonna get there fast, probably, but it's not gonna be fun.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah.
bouncing all over the place, you know. So it's like it's a pretty similar type of theory.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you've been in the in the bike industry for a while. How you see is changing? Would you say like people are going more into like the adventure side of thing, or more towards the performance side, like looking for marginal gains? I don't know. I mean, you see in the pro teams, like now they are getting, first was like okay having really like skinny tires, and now it's like they are riding like 30 millimeter going one by. So all these changes, uh have you seen like what's your thoughts on how the market is changing, how cycling is changing? I think in particularly after COVID, when a lot of
Mm.
new cyclists kind of started in the sport.
Yeah, I think it's as I mentioned, like, you know, before it was like used to be that we watched the Tour de France and that was what inspired us, and everybody kind of wanted to be like them. And I wouldn't say to know why, but it for sure seems like people are you know, the things that motivate people are different now, and than they were 5 or 10 years ago. And people are, it's like an inner sort of motivation and desire to explore new things and new places. And people want to connect with, you know, nature and landscapes. And yeah, as you said too, like, you know, new cyclists that come in during COVID, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is of new and old, but you know, those people don't have that history and they don't have the connection with, you know, pros and pro racing and stuff. So they look at cycling in a completely different way, you know, than maybe somebody who's been around for 15 or 20 years does. And I think, um, I wouldn't say that you know, one category or another is taking over, but I just think people are more interested generally in getting outside and, you know, and experiencing things in a different way. And generally speaking, you know, I would say there's a movement, I wouldn't even call it a trend, you know, towards just kind of real adventures and real experiences where, you know, and being on a bike is, I mean, I could talk about that for hours, but because it's like I dedicated my whole life to,
Yeah,
and as far as just, you know, my love for cycling and bikes. But um, I mean, being on a bike is, it always feels like the perfect way to experience something. Like the speed is like, if it's, you know, it's not so slow that you get bored, and it's not too fast that it's, you know, you're kind of whizzing by stuff. It's like you have just the right amount of time to take in, you know, your surroundings. And especially when you go to new places, like, you know, you and I were fortunate enough to share a trip and adventure here in Taiwan, and it's all new stuff and all new places. And you just you get to see things at the right pace, you know. And you can hear the birds chirping, and you can
yeah,
you know, you can smell the smells, and it's like you're really you're immersed in your surroundings. And I think that's
yeah.
something that really appeals to people now more so than, you know, than before.
Yeah, I'm a COVID cyclist, so I can relate to that. I mean, I didn't know much about cycling, but Lance Armstrong maybe, so I didn't have this connection with cycling. It's like okay, I only know one cyclist, and maybe Quintana, a Colombian one, but that's it. So for me, what I enjoy most is like I didn't aspire to be like a pro, like fast, like a
Mm,
for me it was more about that we started doing trips because it was COVID, exploring new places, and I was like wow, that's the perfect way of traveling and really connected, as you said, with your surroundings. It was like I was like okay, I never want to go back to the conventional way of traveling. It's much more fun on a bike, and it feels more authentic. It allows you to go to places you wouldn't go otherwise. Or like I was really surprised in Taiwan. I was like wow, I never expected that, like perfect smooth roads, everybody was
mm,
super friendly, like even cars were giving you, cheering you up instead of like screaming at you for not getting out of the way, and being able to, even if we didn't speak the language, locals were so friendly in the small villages. And that's an experience you don't get when you go to the touristy places where everybody
mm.
goes. So it's a real like yeah, adventure. So for me, that's the reason why I like cycling. more than okay, I want to be like this pro. Is like, oh no, because I
Right, right.
want to explore new places. So yeah, I think the
Yeah.
COVID cyclists might be more on that side.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a real sense of achievement to have, you know, you talk about cycling a distance, but it's also like, I've moved myself from one place to another completely under my own power, and I think that's really cool too. Like, I, me, whatever, it doesn't matter to you, but it's like I rode my bike from Oslo to Napoli in Italy one time. It's
Wow.
like that's pretty cool. Like that's that's a really long distance, and I got there all on my own. Like you've done TCR. It's like you went from Belgium to Greece. That's pretty cool. So I think that sense of achievement is also an interesting part of it as well.
Hmm. And if you had one advice for somebody getting into long distance cycling, what would it be?
Oh, yeah, I think you need to kind of work your way into it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's what I had to do. I had to break down barriers, sort of slowly. The first time I cycled through the night, for example, like, without sleeping 24 hours, whatever, like that was a thing. And it took me years to do that and like a couple of years. So it's, I think, uh, start with some smaller events that are you can sort of break down into smaller segments and not too overwhelming and work your way into it and it's really it takes 4 or 5 years almost to get into it and to get to a higher level, and it doesn't depend, it doesn't matter how strong of a cyclist you are really. Like, it helps of course because it's easier for you, but uh, there's a lot of things that you need to learn and understand about yourself, that go way beyond just so yeah,
Hmm.
start small and work your way in and give yourself, time to, to like achieve maybe a bigger goal. Plan a couple of events a year, maybe two or three, and you can of course add in some bikepacking and some other trips as well. Good. I mean, there's a good when you're doing bikepacking, and the kind of bikepacking I was doing before I started racing was like long days. And, so it was almost like racing anyways. Like I'd go and ride say 200, 250, 300K a day and then like, eat dinner, go to bed, wake up in the morning, get going. It was like pretty much a race anyways. So,
Yeah.
I think like, that the transition from that kind of bikepacking to over to racing is pretty short. But if you're, be realistic as well with yourself and your own ambitions. And if you think riding 150K a day is a long ways, then entering 1,000 kilometer race is maybe not a great idea. You might want to start with something smaller and just work your way into
Oh, great piece of advice. Thank you so much,
it.
Jeff, for joining us
Yeah,
today. I'm looking forward to see what the Fara will bring in the future.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, and yeah, I really enjoy watching all your adventures. And I think your learning curve probably goes against my advice because your learning curve has been pretty steep. You've gone from just being someone who likes riding around to being like a world class ultra cyclist in a pretty short time. So it's pretty impressive.
Thank you. I think what I want is to inspire people to, like
Yeah.
you can go from not riding your bike to do things like transcontinental. I think that's the beauty of ultra cycling. There's so much things you can do and yeah, challenge yourself. I think that's kind of what draws me to it. Well, thank you so much, and for our viewers, stay tuned because there is the Taiwan trip video coming up soon, and also some new tech in the channel. Until the next one.